Ruin is finally here and it blew me away. Across the board, people are saying it's a breath of fresh air for modern Five Nights at Freddy's. Even people who disliked or even hated Security Breach are giving props to Steel Wolf for what they've done. And why wouldn't they? Everything from the graphics to the gameplay with the whole mask mechanic to even the fact that it's actually scary this time, with a few decent jumps throughout. But that's not what we're here to discuss today, because I could gush about this game for hours. Today, we're on a mission. The one thing this DLC definitely has in spades is lore, and new things are being found every day. But for now, we have some serious information to go over. So slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake ourselves a theory. For the purposes of this video, I think it makes the most sense to split it into two sections. First, I'll go over the basic plot and lore as directly presented in the game with zero speculation. Maybe a light implication every now and then, but just straight plot line. In the second half, I'll do some theorizing. However, for the point of the video, I'll do some very easy to agree with light speculation. Things that are pretty clear but technically involve some sort of implication. I'll leave the really crazy theories to start next week. As an example, if this video was about FNAF 4, the first half would just be going over the minigames, the plot within, and maybe suggest that we play as the crying child. Whereas the second half would go over that we could be playing as Michael. And I wouldn't touch on the theory that maybe the whole thing is real and tests done by William Afton. That's more speculative. Got it? Good. Then let's dive right in. The basic story explanation is our player character Cassie gets a message from her friend Gregory to come to the Pizzaplex, but he doesn't say why. When we get there, we can't find him, but we do find the Pizzaplex is in a terrible state after what the papers call an earthquake. Going a bit deeper, we find a walkie-talkie in which we hear Gregory tell us that he's trapped in the pit at the bottom of Roxy Raceway. Something grabbed him and now he's stuck. We need to come save him. Going deeper, we encounter Glamrock Chica. She tries to attack us but powers down almost immediately. It's likely that this happened because of the terrible damage and somewhat melting that she's endured so far. We go further in and find a Faz wrench, a tool used by the staff at the Pizzaplex, and Cassie remarks it looks just like her dad's. She soon encounters Monty, falls into the sewage, and ends up at Monty Gator Golf. She then encounters the damaged staff bot that gives her the virtual augmented neural network integration mask, or the VANNI mask. We will get into it. It shows us an AR version of the real world that tells us that some objects are and aren't real. It also displays the security nodes. These are virtual manifestations placed around the Pizzaplex that power and activate security measures, things like locked doors and the like. They are part of the M.X.E.S or M.E.X.E S system, something that was put in place by someone to conceal and trap the endoskeleton in the basement. We will get there. Once we put on the VANNI mask, we meet Helpy, a digital assistant. He seems like a perfectly friendly digital assistant, but then he puts an ocular implant that allows him to be in our vision even when we're not wearing the mask. He also occasionally says some whack shit, but when he does, his eyes go yellow and some veins appear on his head, so something else is going on there. Finally, in this section, we meet the rabbit entity trying to stop us. We're all pretty sure what it is, but that's technically speculation, so for now I'll just say this digital rabbit is trying to protect the security nodes, and in doing so, releases distress calls to the animatronics to try and stop us. We follow this basic setup through pretty much the rest of the game, using the VANNI mask to navigate the Pizzaplex and turn off the security nodes, following the instructions of Gregory and Helpy. All the while, M.E.X.E.S and this rabbit entity is trying to stop us. However, we do learn some things in the meantime. Not only did Monty replace Bonnie, but Bonnie's full animatronic is still at the Pizzaplex, just destroyed. If you deactivate every wet floor bot and do something else, I don't know, I still can't get it to work myself, there's a hidden room in the back of Bonnie Bowl that shows Bonnie's full, damaged animatronic, surrounded by 4 more wet floor bots. There's a broken bowling ball that seems to imply that he was damaged here as well, but any more is going to be speculation. This does, however, nearly deconfirm that Glamrock Bonnie was used for parts to create Burn Trap, mainly because all the parts for Glamrock Bonnie are still here. We also learn that Roxy did in fact replace Foxy, but much earlier than Monty replaced Bonnie. She also fully replaced him in the Pizzaplex as a whole. Bonnie Bowl still exists, but where Roxy Raceway is, Foxy's log flume once was. For unknown reasons, it and all of the Foxy merchandise around it has been tucked and hidden away. Finally, at Roxy Raceway and Roxy Salon, we learn learn a lot more about our player character, Cassie. From the Roxy dialogue at the end of the game and the cardboard cutouts we see here, we learn that she had a birthday at the Pizzaplex on the 11th, but nobody came. Roxy was there, and eventually, possibly, Gregory showed up too. Other than that, no one showed up. Speaking of Roxy, there's some interesting things about her animatronic specifically. When we put the Vanny mask on, Chica and Monty just appear in the weird X-ray vision that most things do. Freddy completely disappears. I forgot Freddy. We'll get into Freddy. But Roxy looks different. We see a digital recreation of what Roxy looked like before she was damaged. Furthermore, Roxy is the only one that recognizes us as a child, remembers us being there, and turns friendly by the end on her own volition seemingly. And finally, when we deactivate her at the instruction of Gregory and Helpy, this digital recreation goes away. Now, Freddy, totally forgot about him. We encounter him in Blast, and while he is missing his head, implying the Princess Quest ending, he seems to have a weird stomach mouth. Any more is going to be speculation, so I'll leave the rest of the discussion when we get there. I hope the message got through. I feel like I've been in here way longer than the previous floor. I just need to find any kind of exit at this point. Oh. Maybe this will help. Today's video is brought to you by Morgan & Morgan Injury Law Firm. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm, which means they have the resources to fight for you. If you've ever gotten into something like a car accident or a slip at a store, it is a no-brainer to contact a personal injury lawyer to protect your rights. And Morgan & Morgan can get you the compensation you deserve. In the past, you may have hesitated to seek representation because of the long, daunting, and often difficult process of hiring an attorney. But Morgan & Morgan has fully modernized the injury law process. You can submit case details, sign contracts, upload documents and medical records, and more, all from your phone. You can even text your attorney. In fact, you don't even have to visit a law office and sit through this long, boring consultation. In 8 clicks or less, you can submit a claim and have a lawyer review your case right from your phone. But I hear you. Right, that sounds amazing, but I probably can't afford it. Actually, you can, because with Morgan & Morgan, you don't pay unless you win. Their fee is free. There are no upfront costs, no sign-up fees, anything like that. So if you're ever injured in an accident, you can submit a claim at www.forthepeople.com/rytoast or by dialing #law, that's #529 from your cell phone. Thanks again to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's video. Morgan & Morgan, for the people. Ooh. That's little. It's like a crystal or something. Feels fragile, almost like I could just break it if I just squeezed it too hard. Oh boy. Going down into the hole under Roxy Raceway, we see that something has tunneled out of the old pizzeria, because there's a tunnel leading straight from there through the giant Freddy statue. Presumably this is the Blob, since we see the Blob leave early in the game, but we don't know for sure. Going through, we find a huge cave filled with water and glowing mushrooms, and going even further, we see what looks like the pizzeria with some weird wooden sections. Inside, Candy Cadet tells us a story, which I'll summarize to: a mother and son live in a cabin in the woods. There's a monster in the woods. The mother locks the monster in the basement. The mother sings a lullaby to the son every night. Eventually, the monster learns the lullaby and tricks the son to open the door with it. The story ends there. We go deeper in and we find the rooms that make up the FNAF 6 labyrinth. Even further in, and we find the M.X.E.S central hub. We put on the mask and turn it off. In doing so, the rabbit entity pops out of it to grab us but gets sucked back in. We then power a forklift to bust down the cement-covered doorway, and we meet it, the endoskeleton that's been locked in the basement. We learn that this whole time, who we thought was Gregory was this endoskeleton mimicking his voice. We will get there, believe me. Then, seemingly, Gregory's voice calls us, the real Gregory. He warns us that this is all a trap, we're not meant to be here at all, and tells us that his friend has instructions on how to get out, and then leads us to an elevator. If you go in the elevator, Gregory explains a bit more of the situation. There's a bit of feedback on the walkie-talkie, then he says that he understands that we did this for him, and he's sorry, but he has to make sure that we weren't followed. And the elevator drops, seemingly killing Cassie, but then at the end of credits, Roxy says, "Cassie?" So she's probably alive. There's also 2 more endings here. If you disobey Gregory's orders and eventually go left, you find a Fredbear cutout holding 2 ice cream cones. If you put on the Vanny mask, you see a recreation of the Save Vanny Good Princess Quest ending. However, Freddy's head has been swapped out for Helpy, and they're all holding ice cream cones instead of what they were holding originally. We hear Gregory said that he found a safe place to hide, and it ends. However, there's one more secret ending, this one much harder to get. There's 4 hidden cameras throughout the game, each of which open a door in this chase sequence. If we've activated activated all 4, the endoskeleton is no longer just an endoskeleton. We get there and it's created this stitched version of several different mascot suits, all created into one. It seems to be a lion base with elephant and bird parts stitched together. If we go down the doors we've opened during the chase sequence, we then go into a room very reminiscent of the scooper room from Sister Location. We turn it on, and what looks like a scooper, and the game files call a scooper, dismantles the endoskeleton in front of us. And let me tell you, I was not expecting that. He's kind of in the Family Guy dead pose. What is that? And if you want to see me actually play through Security Breach Ruin for the first time on stream live, there's a full 6.5-hour VOD on this channel. But if that's too long and daunting, I actually have something to announce. From what I can see, 2 people solved the puzzle that I've been laying out for a few months now. So shout out to Pool Noodles and Sandwichly. But I am officially launching a second channel, Rye Toost. It will primarily be highly edited versions of the streams that we do on this channel, done by my
wonderful, talented, funny, and wholesome
editor, Queen Coda. Expect content like this.
Huh?
Who were those little friends? Oh, shit. But it will also be home to videos I want to make that don't really fit on a FNAF Theory channel. Things like Pokemon Nuzlocke, Mario game rankings, cooking content, who knows. The channel officially launches next week, but the channel is currently made, so you can go find it here to subscribe and turn the notifications on, and I'll see you in a week from now. One of the videos on launch will be part 1 of my Ruin Security Breach playthrough, and I personally cannot wait to start this new venture with you guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to live my dreams like this. But anyway, that was the entire plot of Ruin. It's a very weird plot with a lot of interesting points to go on. But now it's time to start theorizing. So bake with me for a second as we'll start chronologically. First, I think it's pretty safe to assume that the canon ending for Security Breach is officially the Princess Quest Save Vanny ending. After all, Gregory, Vanessa, and Freddy's head are nowhere to be found in this DLC. Second, Freddy is damaged and headless in the same place he would be at the end of that ending. Third, the Princess Quest machine in the Vanny hideout is toppled on its side with an AR yellow sword stuck straight through it, implying that it's been beaten. Fourth and finally, I think part of what the Fredbear cutout ending is telling us is doubling down that the Princess Quest ending is canon. Next up, Cassie's dad. Now, I'm working on a much more controversial theory in the background, expect that one in like a week or 2, but for now, let's just go over the direct implications in the game. When Cassie picks up the Faz wrench, she notes that it looks just like her dad's, and when we look at the description, it says that they're used by Faz technicians, so we can assume that her dad was a technician at the Pizzaplex. I say was because several times in this game when he's referenced in the past tense. Bonnie was his favorite. He used to collect things like this. I think this is all implying that our father worked at the Pizzaplex as a technician, but has since died. I do think he's very closely linked to the Pizzaplex though, at least the franchise as a whole, as we learn that his favorite animatronic was Bonnie, he used to collect old vintage lunchboxes, and he knew what happened to Glamrock Bonnie. So he's been around in this franchise for quite some time. Any deeper speculation than that wouldn't suit the vibe of this video. So we'll leave it that Cassie's dad was a technician at the Pizzaplex, but is now dead. Now, I'm going to save the Vanny mask for when we talk about Helpy, Gregory, and the endoskeleton, so for now, let's just talk about M.X.E.S. I think it's fairly safe to assume that the rabbit entity chasing us throughout the game is just the digital manifestation of the M.X.E.S system. I also think that M.X.E.S is the good guy here. If the mask is what allows us to deactivate security protocols, M.X.E.S is just acting upon its initial programming. Like, of course he would want to stop us. That's the whole reason this Toon Summoned Skull was ever created. He did nothing wrong, just following programming. The next thing to mention is this weird connection between the wet floorbots and Glamrock Bonnie. I mentioned that you have to turn off every wet floorbot to gain access to him, but he's also surrounded by 4 wet floorbots while still active. If you deactivate those 4 as well, he shuts off. Not only that, but when you go in his green room tunnel, first thing you see is an outline of the wet floorbots. And when you approach active wet floorbots with the Vanny mask, you hear these ghostly wails. Something is here, like there is some kind of connection between the wet floorbots and Glamrock Bonnie. I just have no clue what it is yet. Freddy also presents some questions. With his missing head and the location he's in, plus the heavy damage, it implies that this is the same Freddy at the end of the Princess Quest ending. However, there are some issues with this. One, the damage on his front looks intentional as it's formed into a mouth. And two, there's this weird prototype stamp on his foot. I bring up the damage because everything else seems accidental and like they were just destroyed throughout the game, whereas Freddy seems intentionally made that way. But that could just be a cool design feature. The prototype thing has me hesitate a little more. In Security Breach, Freddy does not have this prototype tag on the bottom of his foot. This is new. This could imply that this is a separate Freddy, but I think it makes the most sense that this is Steelwool either slightly retconning the design or just it's been revealed through more damage that he is a prototype, and it's their way of explaining a little bit more on why the Glitchtrap virus didn't perfectly infect Glamrock Freddy. Alright, I've put it off long enough. Let's talk Gregory, Helpy, and the Vanny mask. I think it is most likely that the endoskeleton in the basement of the Pizzaplex is the M.E.C.S, the main antagonist from the epilogues of the Tales from the Pizzaplex books. Now, I'm not going to go into the debate on whether or not those books are within continuity. There is still speculation on both sides, and it's very heated on both sides. That's not what this video is meant to do, so I'm just going to go over what the M.E.C.S means for this game, and I'll make references to the book. This endoskeleton, the M.E.C.S, has the ability to recreate actions it sees and voices it hears, and it's that ability that it uses to trick Cassie into freeing it from the Pizzaplex. The Gregory we hear throughout the majority, if not all of the game, is actually the M.E.C.S pretending to be Gregory on a walkie-talkie. But if that's the case, what about Helpy? He seems to be allied with this fake Gregory, and although he looks normal, occasionally he seems to be taken over by something more sinister. Is this just the M.E.C.S again? I hesitate on that, mainly because there's a few times in the games where Gregory and Helpy seem to bicker. One of the examples is the first time that M.X.E.S is shut off in the Monty catwalks. Helpy mentions that he activated a jammer that counteracted him, but then Gregory chimes in saying that he did the real work. If this was all the M.E.C.S, this seems a little too intelligent for the trick it's trying to pull here, to be pretending to have a fake fight to seem more real. It seems like these are two separate entities, but if they are, I have no clue what Helpy is. Maybe it's Glitchtrap and he's still hanging around, it's still too early to tell. And finally, the Vanny mask, or the Virtual Augmented Neural Network Integration mask. I've seen some debate on what this mask is, but I personally believe it's fairly obvious. The acronym tells us exactly what it does. This is not a security mask, and it never was used by any of the staff here. This is the M.E.C.S or Glitchtrap's way of getting inside of Cassie's mind. The moment Helpy does that like occipital integration thing, we lose. We see him in the real world, it's over. Think about what the acronym is saying here. Virtual Augmented Neural Network Integration. A neural network is a computer program based around the human mind. It's essentially a type of AI, and it's being integrated into us. So what does virtual augmented mean? Well, it could be referring to the AR features of the mask, but I think these adjectives are modifying the nouns of that phrase. I think the neural network being implemented into Cassie's brain has been virtually augmented by Glitchtrap. This mask is how Glitchtrap, or the M.E.C.S, is going to take over Cassie's mind, which leads me to the endings. The most straightforward ending, I feel, is the elevator, but I don't fully agree with what the game is presenting here. Several folks on Twitter already noticed that there's a shift in the dialogue while in the elevator. Gregory seems to break for a moment and there's a mic feedback, and suddenly the dialogue repeats that it's Gregory. A lot of people, and myself included, think that this is where the M.E.C.S retakes over communication with Cassie. And that's right when Gregory starts to say, "I know you didn't mean it, this is not your fault, but I can't let you be followed," and the elevator falls. Essentially, I don't think Gregory said that, nor do I think Gregory dropped the elevator. I think that's the M.E.C.S taking back control. Also, Cassie surviving that elevator fall is very suspect, but I'm hesitant to think of any kind of robot kid shenanigans for now. To me, the second most straightforward ending is the Fredbear cutout one. We see it, we put on the Vanny mask, and we see a recreation of Princess Quest. I think this ending is Cassie losing, because I think this is a recreation of the Princess Quest ending. Literally, this is the augmented neural network taking effect, and Cassie's mind is trapped in this idyllic fantasy that she made it out and everything is okay. Meanwhile, on the outside, Cassie's turned into the next cursed Vanny. They already built the cage around the true mind of Cassie. There's a lot more evidence for this, but that gets into very speculative waters, so I'll save it for like 2 weeks from now. Finally, the strangest ending of all, what the files call the scooper ending, where the mimic puts on a stitched together costume, chases us into like a sister location room, and gets scooped. I'ma be so real, I have no fucking clue what this means. I will say, however, and I'm just gonna touch on this ending is the main reason why I'm still not convinced that the Tales from the Pizzaplex books are in continuity. Hear me out. A huge important factor of the Mimic is the white tiger. In the books, the Mimic first copies its creator's son, David. David's favorite animal being a white tiger. He has a plushie of it, his bed looks like it, and several times in the books, when it has the choice to present as something, it is a white tiger. In the storyteller, the head of a white tiger animatronic has the Mimic inside it. In Tiger Rock, it presents itself as the Tiger Rock animatronic in this VR game. The Mimic likes presenting as a white tiger, which makes me feel like this moment would have been a shoo-in for Steelwool to say, hey, the books are in continuity, look, it's an endoskeleton wearing a white tiger. I would have shut the hell up. I would have fully accepted that, but they didn't. They specifically chose a lion with other animals stitched on the sides. To me, in the current moment, this feels very specific because tigers and lions are pretty close, but they're not the same thing. To me, this feels like Steelwool trying to tell us in very specific terms, this mimic we're presenting you is very similar to the Tales from the Pizzaplex mimic, but it's not the same one. We've stitched on some extra things and changed its backstory. That's where I'm at right now. Just gonna be honest, I know people are gonna hate that. That's where I'm at. And hey, guess what? You're allowed to hate that and you're allowed to disagree with me. That's how this shit works. But I will be going deeper in on that next week for some extra reasons why. And that's it. Every single bit of lore directly presented within the game, plus some light speculation sprinkled on top. And I was pretty close to a good amount of it actually in my speculation right before the game came out, which you can see right there. In the meantime, a huge shout out to the best channel members around, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.